All right, should we do this? Should we do this?
Yeah, yeah, man.
Should we start
Yeah.
talking? We should start hanging out. Oh no, that's not your music at all. Here we go. What's up, dudes? Pete here from Hath with James, a burial in the sky. James, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing okay, dude. I'm doing
Yeah?
okay. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I just heard like an insane echo because I was curious as to where it was in the song. I don't see the Twitch thing up, so I looked it up. I just had like a crazy, insane you saying one thing and then like a few seconds later it coming at me. So I thought I was just like having an episode. I was like, oh, this is it. This is the time I seize out.
Welcome to my weekly experience where it's a mild panic between am I doing something wrong? Is Twitch or my computer breaking, or am I having a stroke? Is it an onset aneurysm?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, you're now a professional Twitch streamer. Welcome.
Awesome. That's great. This is what it takes. I mean, most people just call me a potato, so I'm glad I'm now a Twitch streamer.
Well, I'm glad to have you. We're going to talk about your guitars. We're going to talk about death metal. We're going to talk about gear. And this second episode, I guess, it's not a podcast, it's kind of an interview, more of a hangout. Really what I want to get into, what I want to drill down to is what is it that gets you going death metal wise, only death metal wise. We got terms of service. But why do you pick up the guitar and want to play this extremely monetarily lucrative genre of music that we love so much? What makes you want to get into a van, maybe not bathe for an extended period of time?
Don't say maybe. You know it's just not. You just don't bathe.
Yeah.
There's not maybe.
Well, I mean, there's some tricks around it. Like, you know, you could buy a group shower. You could sweet talk a trucker into a free shower.
Of course.
You could
go to Planet Fitness.
Planet Fitness. If
beat up some middle-aged man just trying to get his New Year's resolution for his black card and have everyone.
Hey man, you got those guest passes. I really need a shower. You know,
one thing's gonna go down, and I happen to have a knife, so I'm gonna take that black card.
If you're in a shore town, you know, strip down, take a shower at the beach. You know, do what you got to do. When the smell gets that bad, when you're in a 12-person passenger van and your drummer's been playing hard in the summer for 4 or 5 days,
well, you have AJ.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, the man's sweating right now in the middle of winter. It's disgusting. He's constantly moist.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So it's same with Sam. Same with actually me too. I
Yeah.
can't even say. I'm actually disgusted.
Some would say these drummers are glowing, but enough about drummers. We're not talking about drummers.
Yeah. Why would we ever want to do that anyways?
So let's talk about you. You play guitar. You play guitar quite well. Let's talk about how'd you get into guitar? What's the James story?
My sister Sarah played. My sister Sarah played guitar, and I wanted her to teach me some chords. I had like an old acoustic guitar that she didn't play anymore, and she gave it to me with like action. You know, like that same like story that everybody has, where it's like action. It's like this high up off the fretboard, and it's like your fingers are bleeding, and it's awful. And this was back before YouTube wasn't as like big back then either. Like, not that it wasn't like big, it was obviously, but it was a different forum, and I don't think I had broke onto it as well. I feel like it wasn't like the place to learn the way it is now. Like, you could literally walk away from YouTube with like the knowledge of like a master's degree in performance if you really are enough of an autodidact. And I don't remember it being like that. Maybe that was me living in some kind of weird echo chamber of how I played, but a lot of it was just picking stuff up from other players and just like sitting and listening and just like hearing certain things that I wanted to do and just like trying my best to figure those things out. So first it started with an acoustic guitar and a few chords, like most people. And it went from me spending like saving up all my money to buy a guitar rather than a paintball gun. I think everyone in my friend group was playing paintball. And I remember that was the decision for me. It was like, should I get a Les Paul or should I get a really nice paintball gun? And I never ended up playing paintball. And I bought a guitar, and it was a horrible choice.
I wouldn't say horrible, because professional paintball might be one of the few things that pays worse than professional death metal.
You're probably right, actually. No, you said. No, you said.
But also comparatively priced. You could.
Yeah. You could go nuts. You could go absolutely ham on those things. And I think everyone in that group ended up probably aging out of that within like a year or two. And it was like, you know, it wasn't that big of a thing. I don't think I ever even played once. I don't think I ever played a shot. I don't even think I ever shot a paintball gun.
And it's a similar experience. What you mentioned with nowadays, you know, any 10-year-old with a Strat copy, their first guitar, can hop on YouTube, and with enough motivation and enough time, not even that much probably, can get really, really good. And within a few years, comfortably sweeping and tapping all over the neck.
Mm-hmm.
I went paintballing for the first time this summer.
Oh, cool.
Got absolutely lit up by a 10-year-old girl with a gun bigger than her. It looked like she was walking around with a howitzer. Probably more expensive than a guitar, but I'm drawing the analogy.
I'm sure. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you're probably right.
Death metal and paintball, it's just two sides of the same coin.
We just figured something out that I didn't realize until just now. I should have done both.
Got a Strat copy and a crappy paintball gun.
Well, that was actually my first electric guitar, was a Strat copy, a Washburn Strat copy, which I still have. It actually ended up making it cycle around like the world of like all these different punk bands, because that was like the scene for where I grew up, was like punk. It was a lot of punk music and metalcore too, which I think metalcore was everyone's scene at a certain point in Pennsylvania. You didn't even have a choice.
It's safe to say early 2000s.
Yeah, well, you didn't have a choice in like the area. Everybody was like, yeah, you know, August Burns Red. Like, so it's like there was no choice except that, you know, which August Burns Red rolls. There's nothing against them at all. But like, yeah, that was pretty much. I think back, if I'm not mistaken, back when I was like very, very young, before they were even necessarily August Burns Red, maybe they were just August Burns Red. They played at like a roller rink, like directly across like a bridge in a no-name coal town. Like, I grew up in like the coal towns, like, so it was, you know, it was the only way that you could get anything, was music, was anything out of anything, because there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
So, with skateboarding and playing music.
So it's a very like classic tale of how to start a metal band. It's like, well, nothing else to do. We could either skateboard, paintball, or do this.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, 100%. That's literally why I'm here, and why I'm still like encroaching on 30 and doing this, whatever this is.
We'll get to that. Don't worry. I got a whole laundry list of very personal and really, I'm going to dig deep on these questions. We're going to get to the real James. So
You could try.
So, how did Burial in the Sky come about? A lot of punk bands, Coal Town, a lot of metalcore.
Yeah, wanted to play music really, really bad. Got into like a lot of garage bands, a lot of garage rock and punk and metal-ish type bands, but never actually metal. And personally, like, I loved like Necrophagist and Death, and like Death all day. Like, I was really into a lot of stuff that no one was in my group of friends, because there was, I think my graduating class of kids had like 120 people. So yeah, so it was literally just trying to find those people, because anyone when you found metalheads, obviously I didn't find people that were into that type of stuff. So, but eventually you do, and you start like slowly you got start to slowly badly copy bands that you really enjoy, which is what I did. And I remember the first iteration of Burial was I think that we were calling it Malignant Narcissist or something ridiculous. And the guys who I was writing with, I showed them which became demos for Burial later on, some songs, and they said they all lacked meat and potatoes. Was the words for it. They said it all lacks meat and potatoes, and I was like, okay, well then I'm just gonna go record it and just do whatever I have to do. And I had a friend from Long Island named Mike from Splattered Entrails who was like, just do it, just like do it all yourself. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I just started demoing stuff out. And then a guy who I had been in and out of bands with for like a trillion years named Willow Cromwell, he ended up stepping in, and we went through more drummers than I could count, more bass players than I could count, more vocalists than I could count, and over the years just kept rotating and rotating and rotating until we ended up with what Burial is now. And I like, you could just create this timeline, but it is almost like that there was never actually the band. I feel wasn't actually the band until probably like 2018. Probably like I would genuinely say the first time it actually became Burial in the Sky. And we've been around for a lot longer than that. The name has been around for a lot longer than that, but the band itself, like what it is now, it just was like constantly just changing into whatever these people that were adding to it or ending up taking away from it were. So yeah, I think it was it just was like a very young kids band that just kept just like changing its name and then eventually sticking with the name, but changing completely how its process of making music was, like learning the whole time.
So around what year were those demos?
2000 and am I counting the ones without the Burial name? Or
where do you consider Burial starting?
I would say like maybe like 2012, 2013.
Okay, so you guys were at it for a while until like you really felt like the Burial. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You were at it for a while before the Burial you wanted kind of took shape.
Yeah, absolutely, 110%. Yeah, I was doing it for a really, really long time with mainly one other guy, and then he left. Sam had joined while Will was still in it. And then we had, he ended up going off to be a mailman, which is way more lucrative and has a way better pension. And
that's true. That's fair.
Yeah, it's for real, dude. You can make bank being a mailman. But Sam came in, and then not long after that, Zach came in, and it was me, Sam, and Zach for a while. We like slammed through Creatio, which was our last album, which came out in 2018. But that was like a whole thing in and of itself. With like, there's different vocalists on that record. It's a funny record for me personally, because it's not something that like, it's not bad. It is what it is. The record is what it is. But there was like a PR time frame that we had to push like multiple times, and we couldn't push it anymore. And we had to release it even though things weren't done and this and that. But what ended up happening, I feel, was like it almost made us like have like a drive to be like, wow, that all really sucked. We went around that really stupid, and we learned like a lot, and we ended up pushing more, and I feel like becoming better musicians because of it. Because we're like, well, we got to not suck as much. Like we got to be better at what we're doing.
I agree completely with that. I mean, I feel like, especially starting a band, like even though you were at it for a few years, to get to that cohesive sound, to get to that, I find when you finally get to that thing that makes your band your band. You know, you don't just sound like every other Death or Necrophagist ripoff, or there's a lot of failure that has to happen, a lot of compromises that have to happen, a lot of failed bands that typically have to happen before you get there. So
Absolutely.
yeah, like I can really appreciate that feeling.
Oh, from like a I think anyone that's been in it probably for as long as we have and longer, I'm sure, have more than enough stories of like being like, or looking back at it, it's like I wasted so much time then, or something. But like in reality, it's not. It's not this linear thing. It's more so just like, I think someone said it to me once before, where it's like it's not like every day. It's like a cumulative. It's a cumulative of all the days. Like it's like, so it's like you're not doing well if you're doing great every day. It's like as a whole, how's it doing? So as a whole, I feel like getting to where we are now, it was all worth it. It was worth all the really bad music that people can find still. It's worth people, which I hope, I always think of that kind of stuff. It's like, please God, don't let anyone find any of that music.
And coming up next, no, I'm not going to do that to you. I can appreciate that sentiment even more. There's a lot I've put out there that I appreciate whenever someone says, hey man, that was really cool back in 2009, 2010. I'm like, you're very kind.
Yep.
You didn't have to say that, but thank you.
In fact, don't say it.
Yeah.
Just don't.
If it's on the internet, it'll live forever. But no, I understand what you mean, where a lot of those, I'll use quotes, failures. I wouldn't necessarily consider it failures because it had to happen for you to get to this point. If it hadn't happened, or if you hadn't learned from it, you know, you'd still be doing the same band you were doing 5 years ago, that in retrospect now you're like, nope, there were a lot of things wrong there that we fixed, we made better. So let's talk about that. This new Burial in the Sky, this 2022 Fresh Golden Child Burial in the Sky with the Consumed Self. Let's talk about that, how that came together, because you dropped it in a very conspicuous time, I'd say, for releasing music, which I can only assume the writing and recording process was even more difficult.
It was. That's actually, yeah, absolutely. You're definitely right. We had a lot of intentions when this record had come out, and we had a lot of this record written, or at least the bones of it, well before the pandemic hit. So that ended up at one point slowing it down, and then like hyper driving it at one point. It was weird how that ended up happening, but because writing for this happened almost immediately after we had released the last record prior to it, Ratio. Mostly, I think, like I said, as like a response to that for us was like, oh, this one didn't happen the way we wanted it to. And rather than just being like, well, that sucks, and laying down for a while and being like, how do we fix this? All of our response was, let's dig in really deep and like forget about trying to write one way or another and just write what comes naturally. And everyone did that. And everyone was very involved. All the members were. And yeah, I think what's difficult is because I think everyone approached it differently. But from like an emotional point of view, for me, because I look at music really emotionally most of the time, it was like it was cathartic, but it couldn't become cathartic until it was done and I was happy with it. But I needed it. Like I knew I needed it. So I knew it would be something that was like freeing for me if I got through it. But I just had to get through it. Mm-hmm. And that might sound, I'm sure that sounds relatable to some people, or pretty much almost any time anyone lays down and lays down music and like, but I wanted to be happy with it. And I actually genuinely am happy with the record. Like, there's a lot of stuff where, like, I'm not going to sit down and listen to it. That'd be fucking insane. But like, I would, like, I'm happy with the album. It is an album that I would say that, like, if I was a younger version of myself, or even maybe myself from a different universe, that I would say it is a record I would like. I genuinely believe that. But yeah, I with the pandemic, we ended up having to not do as much studio time as we wanted to do. We ended up having to do a lot of our stuff ourselves. Pretty much everything was in-house besides Sam's drums, which he recorded with AJ, who did an incredible job on those. And we sent it out, like, it was just over the course of a very honestly a relatively short period of time, because like we had everything. It felt like it had like we had everything written pretty much for such a long time, and we had been sitting on it for such a long time, and then when we had been sitting on it for like what seemed like forever, trying to kind of like get away from the pandemic a little bit. But that wasn't going to happen, as we can see. That just wasn't going to happen. So we just started on our own, and I did the guitars. I did most of the vocals. Sam did some stuff. Sam ended up like writing out all the orchestration is real instruments played by session musicians that Sam and Zach knew through college, because they both graduated from Westchester. And each individual instrument was like recorded after Sam like transposed all the parts for each individual instrument, because he's stupid intelligent and it's like well above and beyond me. And yeah, so it was just like this long like process, because like again, it's a pandemic, so it's like, you know, you have to try to get all these people to come and record these things at different times and make sure everyone's safe. Is everyone okay? We can't be all we were like barely around each other. It was like Zoom sessions and talks about this and that, and it was really like isolating. In fact, at that time too, when Jarrell did vocals, he ended up pretty much like living with me for like 3 weeks. That was in its own way, like incredibly an interesting part of the record, which was like he had a time frame where he could just kind of come and stay out with me, very luckily, and we were able to like really workshop how vocally the record would sound, which was cool.
See, that's a lot of what you said was pretty surprising to me. I want to unpack some of it, because when you said it was a very emotional album, at least for you, I feel like I can hear that in it. There's a lot of heart. There's especially to the clean singing. You know, the opening track. That's like a heartstring, like melody that cuts through it, and the idea of like writing remotely, practicing remotely, pulling an album together remotely prior to 2020 to me would be insane. You wouldn't do it. It's been done, but it's usually like one ringleader who is the band and is telling people you're going to play this, or, you know, I have this written, play this, or what have you, or it's all programmed. You know, there's plenty of internet bands that started that way and then became real bands. And the new album too, I really enjoyed it. I think is a phenomenal album, and hearing that it was so, for lack of a better word, disconnected. No, you were not in the same room. You're not practicing for months on end every week, every few days to get it exactly what you want is very impressive to me. I understand the challenge, and hearing what came out of it, you know, hats off to you. That's awesome, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, everyone put a ton of work into it in general, and that was a big thing part about it, which is like we want to write a record that also is like emotionally involved. Well, that's how I want to do. I think that's how I approach music. So I can't speak 100% for everybody else, but I know what I put into it, and everybody wants to write in a way that it sounds cohesive. So we all work really hard together to make that happen. One of my favorite Pink Floyd records is Meddle, Meddle.
Mm-hmm.
And every song has equal writers credits on it. But it's to this day, like, and will always be my favorite Pink Floyd record. So I think it's one of the most interesting ones. And one of my favorite things I've ever heard was, wouldn't you want the time frame in which you record an album to be a picture of what the band was at that time? And I think that when you're like allowing that, when you kind of like give in and let that happen, which I feel like is the first time I actually really truly gave into that, was this record. Some really cool things can happen. Mm-hmm. And everyone really just put their all into it. And I think everyone felt very much so a part of the record, because everybody was. It wasn't like, it's not bullshit. Like, There's no on the record that's like said to do something that didn't actually fucking do it. Like, there's like, I can name more bands than I can count on my hands and toes that literally have people like, this person's on guitar, and they didn't play that at all. They're just a part of the band. You do that, and that's fine. It's completely okay. And I'm sure they have their own like aspects that they give to the band that's important. But personally, it feels much more like a group effort that way, when there's at least people, actually doing their part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you hear these stories often enough about, roles in the band. Everyone plays a role, or typically they get asked to leave after long enough, where one or two people, they might be the songwriters. They if you put someone else in a room with Chuck and told them to write Death songs, it's not going to sound as much like Death than if it was just Chuck on his own, or him doing his thing.
Absolutely.
And I got to imagine there was a crazy amount of trust through this whole process as well, because were you present for all the recordings?
So no, I wasn't there at all for any of the drum recording, for example. In fact, that led to some interesting situations that happened with like different rhythms and stuff. There were certain parts that I was like, oh shit, I had to go back and like revamp, because say like there's a certain part, like for example, just like there's a certain part on Anatomy of Us where in the beginning, and Sam plays a triplet. He just decided to throw it in, and the way the guitars were recorded and the way that the drums were recorded, it just sounded like it just didn't match. It just didn't work. So I had to go back and literally just like re-record that, and like tell Carson and Grant, who are like up here and have worked on such incredible things, and be like, hey, I know you just reamped our entire record.
Oh no.
Just so you know. Ooh. This happened. Just noticed. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, it was. So they're like the nicest, most amazing people. I don't think they ever even complained one time. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, compound that by at least 5 people in the band, and then any one session you hired to play on it as well. Like,
oh yeah,
nerves.
Yeah, there was a million things that could have gone wrong at any one point in time. In fact, there was a million things that went wrong at any point in time. It was just like working on a lot of bugs. So that was like the big thing. It's like, yeah, it kind of like turbo drived it to a certain degree of like, look, we have this whole album, but then it was like, how do we accomplish this now? Like, how do we put this down? And that ended up making the process last so much longer. So you're talking about like released in August of 2021, and the writing started in like 2018, and the skeletons were probably done within like the same relative like years-ish, like 2018, 2019 maybe. And then that whole time when the pandemic started to, I mean, obviously you're workshopping songs, there's some issues, and of course you're like, oh wait, no, we have a full album, like let's write this now. Or like, I know Anatomy of Us was one of the last things I wrote, and that was probably like the year of the pandemic, I'm sure, like the big wave of the pandemic when it really truly hit, things started shutting down. I know I wrote that like really
fast
toward the end of all that.
That's a very fast album cycle to me. Like the level of detail that's in this album. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of nuance. And 2.5-ish years, I feel like, is very fast. Like that, like you guys were, it seems like, heads down working on this. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody was. And like I said, like the entire time we were writing stuff that was like we wanted to hurt ourselves writing. Not like in the sense of like people who are just like that. I mean, there's probably people who are way faster, way more talented, way more technical than I could.
A lot of 10-year-olds watching YouTube.
Just shredding it up, dude. Just shredding it up. They've been playing for like 2.5 weeks, and
your first single's out for 6 hours, and they already have cover videos of them playing it better than you.
Yep. Yeah. There really is, there's this one kid that I watched that literally is like, he is like 15 or something, and it's some kind of like really awful named slam metal band, like something that like is like, what is it? Anal Stab Wound.
Oh man.
And his Anal Stab Wound. The kid is like 15 years old, and he shreds, dude. He's so good. He shreds on drums. He shreds on guitar. He shreds on bass. He shreds on everything.
I think I've seen this kid. Does he play like a red 8-string Schecter or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know. Yep.
And it looks like he does all of it himself, the recording.
Everything. Absolutely everything.
Dude, when I was his age, I had a binder of like really poorly written tabs that I printed out. You know, half tabs, riffs, things that were just totally wrong, but I was like, it might be right one day. And just threw it in a binder and like a Randy Rhoads VHS. And that was it.
Yep. That's like, oh my God, I relate to that more than anything I've heard anyone say in the last like 3 years. Like a binder of, I haven't heard anyone else mention that. Like a literally like some kind of folder of just like crumply, ugly papers of just all these horribly written songs that like were tabbed out by like some greasy uncle online.
Oh yeah.
They did a horrible job, and you just printed it out just to make sure that you could play Crazy Train.
I had that little 10-watt amp behind me and like a Zoom pedal or something like that, or a Digitech pedal, and I was like, this is all I need. I'm rock and roll. I'm gonna be the best thing ever. It sounded like shit.
Fuck yeah. I'm gonna play November Rain solo so good.
Yep. Or try and play, you know, like Voodoo Child really poorly. I'm like, that's good enough. My parents were like, just shut up, stop it. Just stop. We're getting you lessons.
Oh yeah, yeah. I only had 2 guitar lessons ever.
Really?
That was, yeah, 2 guitar lessons ever, and it was, yeah, that's it. It's honestly it.
Wow.
I only ever took 2 guitar lessons, and it was just it was a guy who like, I should have taken more guitar lessons. Like, I'm not saying, this is not me saying don't take guitar. Take all the lessons. Take all the lessons. I just didn't have the resources of people around me that were good about that type of thing. Like I said, it's like learning from people like like whether they intend you to or not. You end up just trying to pull from people around you. But yeah, I wish there was someone. There was this one guy named Al. There's this one guy named Al who taught everybody, and he sucked. And he sucked. And actually, his kid. Fun fact: do you remember the band Corellia?
Yes.
There was like that whole big scandal that had happened about them like crowdfunding a record. They raised like however many thousands of dollars.
And it kind of disappeared.
They totally disappeared.
Okay.
They totally just like fell off the face of the earth and never released it. And then I think just within like the last however long, one of the old members like smoked him out, like was like made like a fake page and said they were going to release all the music. Had it for a while. And it became a little bit of a thing again and then just kind of fizzled out again. But like from what I was aware of, now I don't know if this has ever changed or if any of these people got their money back. I personally don't know. I'm sure, I could never tell you now, I'm sure I pre-ordered one of these records because the bass player was from my hometown.
Oh.
Yeah, so and by the time, to clear him, by the time this all happened, apparently, and I haven't spoken, I wouldn't even call this guy an acquaintance. His dad just happened to be Al. So that's the crappy guitar teacher.
The plot thickens.
The plot thickens. Yeah, no. But so I couldn't say I really even knew the kid. My old drummer Matt, like knew him more than me because they were both played in like the actual school band.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew of him more than I did, but their band really was like super sick. It was really phenomenal music. Vocals was incredibly tight. Guitar, like musicians were all super tight. They exploded. They hit like a tour circuit with the Human Abstract and them. They did like a full US run and then just like gone. And just like crowdfunded like lots of money, like a big chunk of money, and just kind of dipped, hard dip. Yeah. You didn't hear that, neither hear that nor there. This completely diverted from me talking about learning guitar, which was gonna happen.
I'm gonna put you back in the hot seat. So no, 2 guitar lessons, not no guitar lessons. 2 guitar lessons. I'd call you at the very least a pretty good guitarist, having watched you play more than a few times. And there's some interesting things about your style of playing that I want to touch on. First and foremost, the finger picking. That was the first thing I noticed about you playing live is you frequently switch between picking normally and finger picking and sometimes hybrid picking. How did that come about?
I never played with pick when I first started.
Really?
I'm just a bad guitar player. I'm just not a good guitar player. What it comes down to is really is just
so a pretty good guitar player and humble.
Oh. No, just not a good guitar player. I just can fake it good enough. Yeah, no, I spent a lot of time without a pick when I first started, and I got really comfortable playing that kind, like starting to play like more fingerstyle stuff from a younger age. Was really into blues music too. I cut my teeth a lot on blues music. So a lot of that, you use your fingers. You just use, so it like it wasn't something that you necessarily needed to pick for. A lot of it was like, you know, like if you were trying to like learn Robert Johnson, you weren't using a pick. So
right.
yeah, a lot of that stuff, you know, my dad exposed me to musically, and it just kind of stuck with me. So sometimes when I'm playing certain things or I'm trying to play a certain part, I'll be picking it now that I feel more comfortable with the pick, that I feel like I've shed that enough to where I feel confident with the pick. I'll still go, oh, I feel a lot more confident playing it like this, like with like finger style or something like that. And just I end up doing that because it's usually just more comfortable for me.
That's really interesting because I feel like now, and it's within the last few years, the idea of hybrid picking or fingerstyle picking in metal is becoming more of a flex. Like,
yeah, it wasn't
alternate
though. It
picking.
was not.
Yeah, alternate picking is the bread and butter. But if you can do this on top of it, you're really good. So that's really cool to hear. Like, you kind of you flip it.
Yeah, it wasn't something that was in. It wasn't ever anything that was like stupid and like super intentional. Just like a lot of people ask, like, how did you get into like tapping stuff or that or this? How did you get into all that kind of stuff? It's like it's more because I'm just like not as good to do like me doing runs the same way, like with legato or something like that. I just wouldn't be as good at, or similar runs I should say, with legato. I just wouldn't come out as good or sound as good.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of stuff just comes, a lot of stuff guitar wise, absolutely I do out of necessity rather than like intention.
All right, I'll take it.
It's the truth. It's the genuine truth. It really is.
So, have you ever played piano? Did you ever learn how to play piano?
I did. I actually did a little bit. So I guess this kind of almost like defunks my thing. I did. I wouldn't really call it lessons because I was for a small period of time studying performance at Bloomsburg in Pennsylvania. But I had never had guitar lessons. In fact, the guitar instructor was only there 2 times a week, and the rest of the time he taught in New York. I think he came down specifically for this like job, and they ended up like trying to get like office hours with him were like physically impossible, and I ended up just like leaving the program. Uh, but I completely lost the question.
So
Saying that.
yeah, piano. The reason I
Oh,
ask.
you have to so like you have to pick a secondary instrument. So piano became that. That's the whole point. So I guess to describe again, never really was able to get lessons. I remember I got like he made me get like all these books that I needed to learn, and I'm like I was studying classical fingerstyle because they didn't. I wanted to do jazz. I wanted to learn jazz. They didn't have a program for that
Mm.
at the school. It was just a really just like not positive experience. But yeah, piano came from that. A little bit of it at least.
Okay, so that makes it even funnier to me because I'm a big fan of players, like mostly acoustic players. You know, they do the full rhythm, Andy McKee, John Gomm, where they're playing the guitar like a drum, but they're also tapping, tuning, sliding all over the neck with both hands. You know,
Absolutely.
they're not strumming. And digging into some of those guys, a prevailing theme is they started playing piano, and or the piano was their first instrument, and then they found guitar and graduated over to that, or moved over to that. And those core fundamentals of, you know, right hand, left hand separation, being able to think kind of two sides of the brain independently with your hands, translates really well to that style of music. And
Oh, absolutely.
that's one thing for me is kind of a hurdle, is that sort of I guess limb separation. You know, I prefer finger picking when I can. I think it just sounds nicer for typically the riffs we do it, or that I try and incorporate it in. But something that moves faster, something that is more designed around finger picking. A lot of the things I've seen you playing where you switch between pick and finger picking is something where I'm watching and I'm going, how is he doing that? Like, how is his hand working so independently of that one? Because it's not just, at least to me, a technical proficiency. You know, it's not like running a scale over and over. It's not like sweeping and making sure both hands are in alignment. It's a lot more percussive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do see what you say. What you mean there. I mean, I don't. I wish I had like a good answer for you outside of the fact, like I said, that it was just pretty much how I learned, and I think it was just like when you're young and you learn something. I think that's the best thing. Is like why it's so important to get kids into music or into art early. Because when you're young and you're doing something, it just like, I think it wires you different. I think it wires your brain different when it comes to that kind of stuff. So learning like that and really focusing on that, like wanting to play a lot of like acoustic stuff, which is where a lot of my, like when I started out playing, my first show was playing live, I was pretty young, playing like church picnics and stuff like that, like, but acoustically. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So let's get more into you thinking incorrectly that you're not a good guitarist. The solos on the Consume Self. So I'll admit I can't tell which is you, which is Brad, but there's a very regular theme throughout the entire album where the composition of the solos meshes extremely well, not only with what is being played by the full band, but what Zach is doing on the saxophone. Was that a conscious effort? It sounds like there's a lot of guitar and sax playing back and forth.
Absolutely. Sadly, we didn't get to have Brad do leads on this record. Brad tracked a ton of like all the 7 on the album. Brad did. Not that the 7-string was an afterthought, but it was used more as like a texture, because at that point we weren't using 7s. We're starting to incorporate them more now as we write more. But I've always was like a dude that played 6, and it just kind of like stayed that way for a really, really long time. So it's just starting to kind of be like, hey, there, I want to try to break out from that. But so for the record, I didn't even have, I didn't own a solid 7 string to even record on. Um, so we recorded on Brad's Black Cat, I think it's called. I think it's a Black Cat guitar, which was sick. But for me, so I ended up, I was the one that ended up doing the leads for this record. But as far as sax and guitar goes, it was about as conscious as it possibly could be. Like Zach and I were both very involved when it came to the lead lines. Involved both of our instruments. A lot of back and forth, sending recordings to each other. A lot of like, this is what we want. This is the idea. Here, here's a melody. Here's something else, and it just ended up being like a constant back and forth until we were solidly happy with what we got. So, yeah.
Well, I think it shows. One thing that AJ and Frank have drilled into my head after so long, writing riffs, especially writing solos, is write something that fits the song. And that's one thing I consciously think of now when I sit down and try writing is, does this fit the song? Does this further the song? Or is this just me wanking for the sake of wanking on a guitar? And that's one of the things that kind of caught me first with this album, especially with the solos, the back and forth with the sax, is the phrasing. It's not, it never feels like shred for the sake of shred. It's a lot of almost vocal sing-songy, I keep saying phrases, but like the way the notes were picked is extremely musical. And I'm curious, how much of that was decided before recording and how much room did you leave for improvisation?
I know I could speak only a bit for Zach, because I know for example, for sax, because I know that's what he does, is a lot of improv. He'll play and he'll play and he'll play and he'll play. I'm sure, like, of course you have ideas in your head, and I'll give some insight, Sam will give some insight, but then they'll go through it. Oh, I really like that part. Oh, I really like that part. And then once you're happy with it, laying down a full thing, sending it off. Hey, is this cool? Maybe change that. Maybe change that. That type of thing. So a lot of his is improv. And I think everyone, to a certain degree, when you're playing, will kind of do that to a little bit. But for me personally, especially with this record, the leads were very important. And the leads were very important simply because of the same thing that you said, which was making sure that I was writing to improve the quality of the song, not just to have some kind of show, because that would have taken away from something that was so intensely worked on. And then all of a sudden there's someone going, hey, look at me. And that's not what the record is about. That's not what I would want any record that I write to be about. So I'll get a melody or something in my head. It's usually just like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's usually just like a note, like a single note that hits me, that I'm very fond of, and it just kind of builds from there usually, or like a small phrase, as you used before. And it just ends up, that's pretty much how I approached every solo on the record, which was just, you said like almost like singing or someone talking or something like that. It's very much so how I approached the record, with everything melody wise. Was almost everything started out as like a hum.
Yep.
That includes vocal lines, that includes lead lines, that includes synth, some very often riffs. Just the whole album, I think at some point probably was hummed.
Yep. My kind of idea of, is it a good riff? You lay it down, you maybe demo it, you take a rough recording on your phone, and if the day later you're able to hum it back to yourself, it's a good riff. Like, that's the keeper riff.
That's a really good way of putting it. I like that. You're right. I agree. I completely agree. And I think I'm going to start instituting that as a thought in my head. When I'm questioning it, it's like, did I hum it? Did I hum it?
Yeah. And like, when, you're the one closest to it, you're going to be the most critical about it. But if a day later, a week later, 2 weeks later, you're still humming it, you're like, oh yeah, that's back. Like my kind of approach to it is, someone who isn't attached too much to it, it's not their baby. If they're humming it back, like, awesome, you did your job.
Yeah, absolutely. 110%. Absolutely.
Awesome. Let's talk shows. So we did a few shows. There were a few things.
Is Hath going on yet?
We're going to be positive. No, there were a few things I want to pick your brain about. Because the first thing I noticed, we're Kemper buddies.
We are Kemper buddies. It's true.
We're Kemper buddies. And Brad was using a neural DSP. He's okay. He's fine. He's fine. I know AJ is going to start talking shit in the chat. AJ, we've got no ill will with neural DSPs.
Not at all. Not even a little bit.
I want to get your thoughts on this sort of like digital revolution that's been happening for the last 10 years. So many modelers, so many small form factors, just easy to just throw in a case, throw in a backpack, and get an amazing sound out of. What are your thoughts on something like that versus, that 200-pound behemoth back there? Where do you stand?
Tube amps are awesome to put on a record. That's it. That's it. At this point, that's kind of it. And the reason just being is just, and I'm sure a lot, I know there are people out there that are just like, shut up, idiot, you're wrong. And it's fine, whatever, I don't care. I was a tube guy forever. That's all I used up until 2018 or something. Not out of anything else except that it being all I knew. Mm-hmm. And the idea of changing that was terrifying. And we did a small run with Rivers at the end of their Where Owls Know My Name tour. So I think it was 2018. Their last few days, they asked us, they ended up doing like a sold out show in St. Vitus, and they wanted to do another show, and they asked us, Imperial Triumphant and Outer Haven to play.
Oh, wow.
And we did. Yeah, it was a cool show, except my amp, first off, so the entire time that I was with them, I was listening to Brody play, and I was like, fuck, this guy sounds so good. His tone sounds so good live. He sounds phenomenal every night. Every night he sounds really, really good. And of course I'm like, well, they have an FOH that's really phenomenal. It makes sense, right? Okay, whatever.
They're pros.
And they're super tight. And those guys are all awesome. But I'm talking to Brody, and I asked him at one point what he was using, and it was a Kemper. And I don't even think prior to him I had even spent much time thinking about getting a modeler. I knew of them, and I was incredibly they're incredible. This is amazing, but out of my pay grade. I don't think I'll be able to process all that.
I think mine took me close to 3 years to pay it off. They can be so prohibitively expensive, but to get that many pedals and that many amps.
Oh, and at the end of the day, it's like you turn it on.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, well, most of the time, I would say the thing, yeah, 100%. So for me, it was he ended up having this incredibly consistent tone that was awesome. We had a really great show in Philly and stuff like that, and we played at St. Vitus, and it was one of the worst shows I think we probably ever played.
Oh no!
And it has those shows. Everyone has those shows.
Yep.
But it was just a really bad time. My amp kept shooting out the entire time. I was trying just power through it. I ended up like taking my pedal board out of it at one point. Probably really wasn't necessarily the pedal board. There was just like nothing that was going right. And it ended up, and it was a 4-show band bill. Like we were one of the 4 bands on the bill. So it was like for a sold out show at Vitus in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and that's okay, but that happens. And I know the funniest, and we had a fill-in vocalist, and it was just, but whatever, it is what it is. But that show, I was like, I'm done. I'm done with taking a tube amp on the road, because it's just like, I couldn't even tell you what happened, because I hooked it up at my place and everything else, and it was perfect. Took it to a tech, everything's perfect. Pedals, everything's perfect. Patches, perfect. What happened? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I've never had an experience of that much confusion since having it. And maybe I will, but as of yet, no, it has not happened.
So, with the little lunchbox Kemper, would you still consider yourself like a gearhead? Like, do you collect pedals, guitars, amps on the side?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still am at heart. Especially with guitars and like pickup configuration, that kind of stuff. Like all that stuff is still like super intriguing and super fun for me, and I still really enjoy it. I still have a lot of pedals and stuff like that and everything else. So yeah, definitely, absolutely. In general too, it's like as soon as you get into and not just guitar stuff, like synths, and once you get into like that stuff too, it's just like you're just never ever gonna have money.
AJ and Frank just perked up.
Yeah, oh yeah, synths.
The two of them are on such a synth kick right now. It's fine.
I wouldn't have known from the last half single at all.
Yeah. Oh, just wait. But it's not something like I'm happy for him, but it's just not something I get. Like synths are cool. So there was a YouTube video I watched a little while ago. I want to say it was Linus Tech Tips. I might have been wrong, but they interviewed a guy who has one of those wall modular synths. Just 100 little components all plugged together, and they're running routes all over the place. Watching 45 minutes of that, I'm like, that's cool. That's really cool to see someone be that, excited and enthusiastic about their craft and what they can do with it.
Oh yeah.
But I think my line is somewhere between guitar.
It's like stops right there.
Yeah, I'm happy for you. I can't wrap my head around it. It's too much.
There's a lot, and I absolutely don't. To say that like I'm versed in that kind of stuff would be completely false. It's so cool, and are really cool. But at the same time, it's so cool. But also, shut up, nerd. Dumb nerd. Sorry.
He's talking to you, AJ.
I am talking to AJ. I'm talking right to AJ. But no, it's one of those things where it's like I'm never gonna completely understand it. I love strange sounds. I love texture. I love layers, and I will do what I can to find those things. But I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yes. My goal is to eventually make this Kemper sound close enough to like a Moog or some kind of synthesizer where I can be like, no, I can just do it with this. I don't need all that. I have no idea how to play a keyboard. I know how to play a guitar. Kind of. And no, I completely I agree. Texture wise, something like a synth, if it's there, you might not know, but when it's not there, you listen to it and then you turn the synth off, you're like, oh, something's off, something's not right.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, like I mentioned Pink Floyd, like that's huge part of me musically. So not just Pink Floyd, but like that style of music. So like prog rock type stuff.
Some
Beatles.
ELP. Some Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, but I mean, yeah.
Sin City.
Well, like 13th floor elevators. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. But not just old school organs and stuff like that. Like any Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Any kind of anything Graham Nash does in general, actually. But yeah. So like a lot of that stuff, like that 60s, 70s rock, is a huge part of my influence.
Nice. So firmly in the modeler camp for now, at least. We can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am firmly in it, and just like a synthesizer, hardly understand it.
Yes, I back you on that. There's a lot of knobs and options and dials, and I think, if I turn the power sagging up, I think it sounds better. Like, there's a bias attenuator, sure. Clarity and definition.
I don't even know what you're talking about, because I've used the same samples the entire time. I went to Brody and I was like, what do you use? He's like, this. Here's the amp. And I was like, cool, put it in there. Did it.
Your Brody is my AJ. Because we record we like figure out whatever the album tone is, we reamp it, and before we turn anything off, I go, shut up. We're profiling this, and that's what I use for the next 3 years.
There you go. You got it. That's pretty much it. Well, yours is even more involved than mine, because I just had literally just used only that forever now. And then
mine's not that much more involved. The amp changes every 3 years, but everything on top of it, the effects, any EQ, the volume swell, that stays the same. Nothing changes. Oh no, the only thing I've changed is I've added an octaver to just one of my effects, just to annoy AJ and Frank at practice. It's like, guys, look, I can go down 2 octaves, and there's so much delay. Boom. and the room starts shaking.
I love that so much. I want to do that now. Send me that.
I'll send it to you after this. It's a lot of fun.
I'm gonna ruin every day.
So I got a few more for you if you can hang out for a little bit longer.
I'm having a great time. I'm sorry, I just like this entire thing has just been completely derailed the entire time by me.
It's perfect. It's perfect. This is the least amount of technical difficulties I've had in 6 months, so I'm having a blast.
Just James difficulties are what you've been having this whole time.
No, absolutely not. So playing shows for a good minute, and kind of coming up in it sounds like a bunch of different scenes. You know, you've played relatively local, going from the church to punk bands to metal bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you've seen some things change in how shows operate in the last, 10, 15 years? Safe to say? I'm wondering, what are some things today that you wish had taken place, back when you were coming up? For example, hey, you want to play this show? You've got to sell 50 tickets.
Oh, man. Oh, wow. That's tough.
Takes you back.
Yeah. It's funny because I think it's funny now because there's a certain degree of me that I don't empathize with pay to play, but I almost like I see guys who are having to do it, like who are trying to get these venues, and what it really just feels like it usually is just like guys who had either their location is just like you shouldn't have shows there. It just shouldn't be there just shouldn't probably be a venue there, because if you need bands to not actually put heads in your house but maybe bring like 5 friends and then eat 30 ticket sales. Maybe the problem isn't the band. Maybe it is the band. Maybe it is the band. It could very well be the band.
In my case, it was usually the band.
But you know, I guess I see to a certain degree, like I see promoters who probably spent way too much money on a venue, or just trying to like at least break even. And they're like, you got just sell like just 50 tickets, man, at $25. You can do it, man. And those people somewhere inside of me, I'm like, I have empathy for you, but and then at the end of the day, I'm just like, no, you're an idiot. So I don't really care. But neither here nor there. Some things I would wish that would happen.
Or if you could, let me rephrase it. If you could go back 10, 15 years and tell younger James something.
Oh, that's good.
Something to, you know, give him that edge, that little bit that would take him so much further 10 years later.
Oh, that's really, really cool. So 10 years ago, we're talking 2012. Write songs like Periphery before all the bands do it. Even if you don't care or you don't like it, write those Periphery songs. Just do it, because you're gonna have so much fucking money, and you're gonna be able to buy like those really cool cars that Misha Mansour has.
Just go back in time and drop that first Architects album on your lap before they launch. Be like, just learn this.
Just do it. Just figure it out, dude. Just like figure it the fuck out. Like you're just I know you're stupid as shit and you're dumb as a rock, but like figure it out. And actually the biggest one, fucking pay for things. Like actually put money into it. Like really put money into it. Like don't bargain bin everything. That's like a thing that you just need to learn, that no one can actually teach you until you just fucking learn.
Going back to that like failure, like those early failures, that just hit home.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. That would be my thing. Just like fucking if you're gonna do things, just fucking do it right. And it's like, sounds like it's coming from like an old man. It's an older man, but it's the truth. It really is. And it's corny and shitty and sucks assholes, but it's the truth. Just, if we're gonna fucking do it, there's no point doing it unless you do it right.
Yep.
And that's it.
It takes some people longer than others to figure it out. I'm on the longer end of it. But yeah, this latest album round, it's like, why haven't I actually invested to this level prior?
Yeah.
Everything at the end, it hurts up front. Writing that check, dropping that cash, not buying that pedal, not going to that show because, you just dropped a stupid amount of money on photos or a video or something like that. But in the end, it just makes everything so much better.
Oh, absolutely. It's 100% what it is. It's 100% what it is. Because, like, if you're not going to take the time to invest in yourself, and I know that sounds like such a shitty, like, people are probably like, oh, whatever, man. But like to a certain degree, like if you're not going to take the time and spend the time to invest in yourself, what are you doing? Like, why would anyone else want to?
It's just become the PB&J boomer yells at cloud hour.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It's so awful. And like, the thing is, like, there's a trillion people out there. There's like, yeah, asshole, I would love to, I can't. And the answer to that is, yeah, me neither, man. Like, I don't like.
Counter argument, it has never been easier to get a quality product, music wise, band wise, out than it is now.
Absolutely.
Like the amount of artists online, who are up and coming, get a t-shirt designed for $50 to $100, that is stellar. That are throwing out deals to have a logo designed, who want to be a videographer and they'll cut you a deal on this. Plugins, fucking plugins. Oh my God. Like
crazy, man.
Like spend $100.
The Jira plugin from Neural DSP for and that shit sounds incredible.
Yeah. It's $100 and it sounds better than me miking any of these up. Why do I have these?
I don't know, man. We talked about it. It's stupid.
It's so dumb. Man. All right. So, chat, real quick. If you have any questions for James, throw them in the chat. We'll get to them. I'm going to get into the heavy hitting topics now. This is the real shit.
It's the real stuff.
This is why everyone's tuning in. You guys have such a social media presence. It's one of my favorite things about you. Agog. Burial in the Beans.
My favorite. So this is so important for me to make everyone understand. One, my favorite thing in the world, in the whole world, is listening to everyone pronounce that band's name. I'm not going to say it.
Yes, the exclusive.
How they pronounce it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say how I pronounce it because it's different every time I hear someone say it. And it's incredible to hear it every time. Every time someone says it a different way, like you just did right now, it makes me laugh. It makes me immediately laugh. So I'm never gonna ruin that. So
No.
if anyone, I mean, 5 fucking people actually care, but for me, that's enough. Like, and that's incredible to me. Neither here nor there. Burial in the Beans has nothing to do with us. I don't know where it came from. I still have no idea who did it, but they're fucking geniuses because no one's gonna believe it's not me because I'm obviously the dude who's like making songs about Hamburger Helper. It's ridiculous and stupid.
This. You have no one to blame but yourself.
I have no one to blame, but I made this monster. So like it came out of nowhere. And what I thought Brad's girlfriend and her friend both are like meme gods. They're so good at it. They put together things that are just so fucking funny, and they're just only funny to us, but they're always like burial based and like some kind of like ridiculous bits thing, like some kind of weird creature dancing creepily to the music. It's always something very funny. So I was convinced it was them, and then we came together and found out it wasn't. And I, to this day, have no idea who it is. But they're taking relatively like a good amount of time. Like our album cover, they have a cover of our album and it's all beans.
I know. So Burial in the Beans gets recommended to my personal and the Hath Instagram twice a week at least. And every now and then I'll get the notification and just instinctually click it. I'm like, and the first thing I see is followed by Zach Strauss, followed by Burial in the Sky. I'm like, obviously it's them. They have to be doing it.
No. Well, of course we're all idiots and we follow it but I swear to God, it's not. If it's someone else in the band besides me, which I'm usually the biggest idiot, like I'm the guy who takes us and like edits slugs in our hands and shit. Like I'm that guy. I'm absolutely that guy.
I gotta applaud you on that clip of Sam doing drum recording with the Trump edits when he hits the China symbol.
Oh my God. Actually, so the thing was I didn't Walt. My buddy Walt put that together, but the idea was mine. I was thoroughly like convinced that would be incredibly funny. And because to me, the thought of it just made me immediately crack up. And I was like, because I just hearing him say China, and then I like he's such a fucking idiot, and the way he says things is so stupid, and his big dumb ugly face. So like to have that switch and to have just China come out every time Sam hit the China was just it had to happen.
I was crying the first time I heard it. It was. You weren't the only one who thought it was the dumbest, funniest thing. I'm cracking up laughing, thinking about it right now.
The drummer from King Crimson actually shared that video.
Really?
Yeah. We actually became friends on Facebook because of that. I was like, dude, you're the drummer from King Crimson. He's like, yeah. He's like, this shit's fucking gold. And I'm like, cool. If you know us for nothing else except this, I'm stoked. Bye.
Hey, and now you got an in with King Crimson.
Yeah, we're touring with them tomorrow.
Yeah,
actually, Half goes on first though.
Yeah, obviously, we're small beans. No, but social media wise, you guys do something that I feel like I don't really see other bands doing, and that's just being generally positive. Like, death metal is very like, oh, I'm gonna wear my blackest leather coat, stand in the woods, and just be like angry. I'm gonna look unhappy and constipated. You guys don't have that public persona in the least. You generally come off pretty jovial, pretty happy. And then, case in point, the Adventure Time cover. Like, what serious death metal band would do that? Do it well, but it all fits into this public personality. And I'm just curious, like, is it just you guys being you? Is it something like a conscious effort? Like, tell me about it.
I think it's just kind of us. I would love to say that it was some kind of like conscious effort, like we were like smart like that, but we're like trying to find like a, because the whole thing where it's like the key to success, it's like find something that's familiar but slightly different, and then people latch onto it because it's familiar but it's just different enough that they think it's new. So I would love to say that we're that smart, but we're not. And I just think like some of the most comfortable I feel is with my friends in music, like this type of interaction, where we're just kind of like having fun, laughing, talking about really stupid things, and enjoying each other's company. Yeah. That's the same thing when it comes to metal and when it comes to music in general, for me. So it's always been like the one way I feel good in my own skin. So when someone interacts with us or says they like us or wants to talk to us or even wants to write something negative about us, I react the way that I genuinely feel, which is just like, I'm most of the time very thankful that they even took the time to comment or talk to us or participate in anything else. And when it comes to what we do, I'm always going to do what I like to do, and same goes with the rest of the bandmates. And I just happen to be like absolutely like unapologetically obsessed with Adventure Time. So I was like, I felt that I needed it in my soul, because it was like a huge part of like me getting through the pandemic was just like Adventure Time. Like through anxiety attacks was just like watching Adventure Time. That really is like, if I'm anxious, I cannot even give you a number count of how many times I've seen that show. Couldn't even tell you.
Frank and I will back you 110%. And I know we talked about it when we hung out in October, and I'm now upset we didn't talk about it more.
Oh yeah. Oh absolutely. Yeah, we did not talk nearly enough about Adventure Time.
Nope. And by the way, Frank, we have to get the snail tattoos. Just a reminder.
Oh shit.
Yeah, we're doing it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, but you got to get it in a place you can hide it. The snail's
not. To be.
Yeah, the snail's never obvious.
No, absolutely not.
It can't be butt cheek. Butt cheek's like a cop out.
That is a cop out. Like on like the inside of like somewhere where it's like we're like no, behind the ear. I feel like is.
Behind the ear could be like
maybe
right on the ankle line.
Just like shave a little bit of your hair and then just like get it there and let it grow back.
I've thought about that too, like kind of half undercut it, and then eventually I'll lose my hair and I'll be like an old man with a snail in the back of his neck.
And one guy will be like, wait, is that the Adventure Time snail? I don't know why the old man is just smoked 70 packs of Marlboros, but
because it'll be one of my friends, because we'll both be old and the only people remembering what Adventure Time is.
Absolutely.
Ooh, Frank says underboob. Do I cultivate the boob in strength or just in mass to achieve that? Enough underboob to hide the snail.
Oh. That's a good place.
Armpit. Like just peeking out.
That would
really suck.
Oh, that would be awful. That'd be absolutely awful. Oh my God, the idea of even getting your I actually know a guy who had his whole armpit done.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we got a few questions from the chat. I'm gonna throw them at you. What was the first song you ever learned to play as a band, like with other people in a band?
Uh, Hybrid Moments by the Misfits. Like as a band in any band was Hybrid Moments by the Misfits, I wouldn't say. Like in a band. Yeah.
Nice. All right, second question. We're gonna speed round it a little bit. Who's your favorite cast member of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Holy shit. That's I can't remember his name. He sings so beautifully.
Wayne Brady.
Wayne Brady.
There we go.
Wayne Brady. God, he has a beautiful voice. Go on.
How did you meet the other members of Burial in the Sky?
They were in a band prior called Burn the Empire. We played a show with them. We brought them out to literally the shittiest place in the world. It was a fire hall in nowhere, and they came. And that's how I don't think Zach was actually there that day. I don't think he could come and play. So, or actually, I think it was, no, Zach wasn't. No, Zach was there. Tyler, at that time, from Cognitive, couldn't come. Someone couldn't come. I didn't meet someone
Classic
at that time.
Tyler.
Yeah. What a bum. What a bum. Anyway, and I met Sam, and Sam was like, his personality was phenomenal, and he was super duper nice, and we stayed in touch. And when we were really in need of a drummer, he stepped up.
There we go. Favorite type of bean?
It's fucking good. It has to be black bean.
It's a good bean. It's a quality bean.
Quality. Top.
And then I think we're running to the end of the questions. Seeing you guys play in Lafayette, Indiana, I'm assuming Lafayette, Indiana, that's the only one I know of. What's the best and shittiest thing about playing in a smaller town venue?
The best thing is the house is always smaller, which makes the room seem a lot more full. And usually the sound can be a bit better in a smaller place, depending on what you have going on with sound. And then also the sound can be a lot worse simultaneously. So yeah, it could go either way. You actually could end up with like a really good sounding show or the worst, most god-awful meth dungeon sounding show that you'll ever hear in your life. So those are the good and the bad.
We played a show in Roanoke, Virginia, and you know when you're well into a string of shows, you're tired, you haven't bathed, you haven't eaten anything that doesn't come from Little Caesars for like 4 or 5 days. Like your body's shutting down. You just don't really know it yet. Like your brain hasn't caught up to the rest of your body. You're that kind of mood. And we walked into this venue. And it was one of these kind of venues, you know, bar in the front, room in the back. We walk into the back room. There's no plugs. There's no light. There's a corner of a riser for a stage. And my heart sank. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? It was one of those moments. One of the best shows we had on this run. Like, it was absolutely that, like, small room. Yeah, even if I don't know how many people was there. If it was 20 people, it felt like 50. Everyone being into it. I don't know if the sound sounded good. They were drunker than me, and I was pretty toasted. Like, those are the best kind of shows.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. There's this place called one of the coolest shows we ever had. It was a tiny room that was off of the Sherman Theater. It used to be, they called it the living room because there actually used to be genuine living room furniture in it. And then I think they called it the showroom after they got rid of the furniture. But it was no bigger than like 20 feet wide and maybe 30 or 40 feet long. It was not a long. It was a very small place, and it was in the middle of a blizzard, and it was packed so tightly, like sardines. You would have thought there were 200 people in there. You would have no. Could never give you a number.
Yep.
I could never ever give you a number. The door to the venue was ajar, and the heat from the amount of bodies was so much that that snow was just melting as it hit the ground. All the snow in front of the venue was just gone, even though it was a literal blizzard. Like more snow than I could even think of. Like just like piles of snow coming down at the same time.
Was there like a nice fog, like an atmosphere forming?
Yeah, of smelly ass.
Yep.
Yeah, ass smell.
You ever play a basement show?
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Are you kidding me? I literally like had like a scar, like this. I have a scar like this big on my leg from the most disgustingly awful meth tour show date I ever had in my life in New Jersey.
New Brunswick?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
my
100%.
home turf.
Yep. That's exactly where it was. And I fell down a drainage hole carrying my amp, and the metal that was on the side of the drainage hole just shaved all the skin off the front of my leg, and I just used my arms as a way to protect my amp head, because it's a tube amp.
Yeah.
Can't think about it. So I just like this, and I'm like literally like body deep in like this manhole, and the promoter just literally was like in the backyard area, and I just hear them like as like all the bands are leaving, just like laughing, and I just like shredded myself. And I remember like getting out of that hole and just being like, this is one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my whole entire life. And it was a dungeon. It was a basement dungeon.
Welcome to the Hub City. Yep. You don't happen to remember the name of the house or what street it was on, do you?
I don't, but I probably could find out. We were on tour with our buddies from Virginia, in Crucial Rip. And yeah, they would know. I have no idea at this point anymore. That was a long time ago.
All right, next time we hang out, after we spend a few hours talking about Adventure Time, we got to trade New Brunswick war stories.
Absolutely.
I came up playing in basement shows. There's a lot that sounds familiar there.
I bet you've played it. I'm sure you have.
Was it a metal band or a punk band you were playing in?
Metal band. It was a metal band.
I honestly wonder if I played that show. There were like 3 metal bands in all of New Brunswick between like 2008 and 2013-14. I was in one.
This would probably be just a little bit after that.
Okay.
Oh,
just missed you. That's funny.
You just missed me. Yeah, it would have been a little bit more after that. Yeah, but yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll have to try to figure out exactly when that was and where that was, and I will definitely get it back to you.
All right, 2 more for you. Oh, sorry, 1 sec. 3 more for you. That's it. I'm cutting off the questions. Sorry, chat. You mentioned bringing layers into songs. What instruments do you want to incorporate, and why is it the theremin?
I did incorporate the theremin. So, no, yeah, I'm kidding. I wanted to incorporate anything that I can. There's accordion on this record. That was my Mamam's accordion that was passed down to me because, fun fact, my mom's side was a bunch of like traveling Polish minstrels, and they literally fled Europe during World War II.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild? And then my grandfather, who gave birth to my Mamam, my grandfather, he had his child over in Germany. His wife and my Mamam came over. He came back over not long after that, and was here for like not even a year and died in a coal mine.
Whoa.
She was like just barely a baby, and so that was my mother's mother. This close to just not being like a family, not being a person. That close. But so that accordion is actually on the Soft Violet Light, on the first album, on the first song. Yeah, that's really cool. Hear this droning sound and like some melody being played. It's on an accordion. So that and anything I could get my hands on, because you could find such cool textures from different instruments. I don't think it's like something that like I ever intentionally be like I just want this on it just because. But it's usually like a sound that I hear in my head, and I'm like, I feel like I could accomplish that with this. My only biggest regret, because Theremin was on this record, was that I never got to record. My mother ran a charitable 501c for many years out of an unused church that was actually given to her, and she was for a place for homeless people to stay, clothing, a food bank, all this different kind of stuff. But there was still a completely intact and well retained church room. I don't know what you would call that, like
a chapel.
A chapel. There it is. Yeah, like a chapel, and a massive, full 2-story high, completely usable organ with both brass pipes and wooden pipes for each individual note that you had to turn on, and it forced the air through it. And it was literally like a full 2-story, literal like Phantom of the Opera organ. It was beautiful. You literally could open a door to maintenance it and crawl inside of it, and you'd have to climb up on a ladder to get to all the different pipes. It was incredible. I actually have one of the pipes still to this day. But I never got to record it because it ended up being, once my mom ended up getting sick, she ended up getting rid of the church to a guy, and long story short, I wasn't able to ever record it. But one of the biggest, so I guess if I could record any instrument, it would be that. I would love to record a part on an album of that, and I'm sure I could do it with a modeler, but there would be the sentiment would be put on that.
It wouldn't be the same too. There would be something. There's that little fuzz, that little edge, that little warmth, something that you wouldn't be able to recreate.
To me, I just don't think it's possible with stuff like that to a certain degree. Like with the accordion, could I find something that sounds like a pretty good accordion? Absolutely. Would it be that accordion that I have? No, it just isn't. It just isn't.
I got to imagine too that accordion's got to be pushing 100 years old.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. 100%.
The resonance and the materials in it, the age of the materials, has to add character to it.
I would think so.
Are you pulling out an accordion?
I'm actually. Oh, dude, I wish. I actually am pulling out
a charger.
Oh.
But wouldn't it be cool if I did? No, I wish I did. It's actually it's downstairs in the basement.
Don't worry about it. So I feel that's a great place to kind of call it, to wrap it up there. I want to thank you. This has been so much fun. I have nerves coming into this. I was like, oh, I hope this is good. I hope I prepared enough. I hope you killed it. I had a great time. I hope you enjoyed it. I think chat enjoyed it.
I loved it, man. This was so much fun. I appreciate you dealing with spastic, not well off my dose of Adderall, James. I've definitely come off the end of my my second life of my medication, so I appreciate you still dealing with me.
Don't say a word. No problem at all. Last chance. I want to give you an opportunity. What do you got going on? I know you guys are keeping busy.
Yeah, we have a tour that we're going on that starts in the end of this month. Our first date that we have that isn't a routing date is in which you mentioned before, in Lafayette. It goes from 1/27 until 2. We'll probably be home around 2/8 once we have those routing dates, which they aren't posted yet, but they will be soon. Mostly like a mid to Midwest southern tour. Mm-hmm. We have a couple other shows and tours that we haven't announced yet that we're really, really excited about, that are set in stone, but just not able to be announced yet. And yeah, we feel pretty excited about that. We're still working on some other stuffs creatively. We have a couple other things that we know that we're going to be dropping still related to this album and stuff that we're working on for what comes next.
Well, the Consume Self, absolute banger. Lot of stuff happening in 2022 for Burl in the Sky. James, thank you so much. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you having me.
Anytime. We'll have you back the next album too. Chat.
Oh, yeah.
You know the deal by now. We're Hath. We play death metal. We love doing death metal shit with our friends. We got a Discord. Drop exclamation Discord in the chat. Follow us, subscribe, all that. I'm trying to do this at least once a month. Once a month's my goal. If I can get more, cool. If you play in a band and you want to do this, or if you know someone who should be doing this with me, let them know. Let us know. All our social, it's down below. Just hit us up. We're nice people. We're easy to talk to. So,
I had a great time. It was super easy.
Endorsement right there. We're putting you in the trailer. You agreed to this. But that all said, have a good night. Stay cool. Stay healthy. Do all that stuff. Be nice. Pet your dogs and cats. I don't know. I'm rambling now. I'll see you later.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Play solar guitars.
Play solar guitars. Bye.
Bye.